Welcome to Startup Spokane, where hosts Steve Traben and Megan Halsey explore the excitement and momentum growing throughout Spokane's expanding startup community. Startup Spokane is a joint effort between Greater Spokane Incorporated's Startup Spokane, our friends at Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Talks Online. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Megan.
Welcome to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online, your podcast home for everything startup and entrepreneurship related in the Spokane region. We're your hosts, Steve Traben, and along with me, Megan Halsey. We're here to provide the region's story of entrepreneurship and educate you about the resources that exist in our region's ecosystem. Startup Spokane is a program of Greater Spokane Incorporated. We want to share ways for you to plug in and connect to those resources so that if you are launching or growing a business, you have what you need to be successful. At Startup Spokane, we're building an ecosystem that's attractive not only to our native entrepreneurs, but also to people who are looking for that special great place, that being Spokane, to launch their next business. So, Megan, we have a lot to celebrate today as we are starting a new year and looking back on what we accomplished in 2017.
We do, Steve. It's been an amazing year with a ton of record-setting achievements for Startup Spokane and the startup ecosystem at large. We have so many new programs and new resources that are available to our entrepreneurs and that our entrepreneurs have achieved throughout this year. I can't wait to talk about some of those details.
Yeah, and you know, when we talk about startups in general, there's always a hockey stick kind of slide. And I look at Startup Spokane and the accomplishments that we had this last year in 2017, Megan, and really thanks to your leadership and program management, I mean, we have created a hockey stick in terms of the types of assistance, the number of assists we've made and whatnot. So I think we should take a few minutes and just kind of go through some of the stats.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Okay, so what I think the best place to start, though, is to kind of take a look back at where we started from.
Okay.
This program has been around since about 2015. And in that first year, we were able to assist about 56 individual entrepreneurs throughout the year. And this year, we actually were able to individually assist more than 268 individual businesses or startup entrepreneurs. So that's significant growth.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit for our listeners so they understand what an assist is. Because, I mean, really, Startup Spokane, we intend for it to be the front door for anybody to come in to get assistance, right?
That's
So
a great
talk
point,
about
Steve. So an entrepreneur assistance appointment is where anybody, no matter what kind of business it is that they're planning on starting, they can give us a call and we'll set up an appointment and we will meet one-on-one with that individual entrepreneur. And they will meet with myself or with Steve or sometimes with our colleague April, and we will sit down and talk to them about where they are with their business, whether it's just an idea or whether they actually have something in the works, whether they've actually launched. It could be anywhere in there. And we'll talk about what they need and what resources are available in the community that can take them further. It can be things like entrepreneurship training through the SCC Bootcamp or through programs available at SNAP. It can be an individual workshop maybe at SCORE, or it can be a one-on-one consultation with one of our many, many office hours providers for people who maybe need a little bit of guidance on legal or accounting specific questions. And we will work through a variety of those things and give them some bite-sized steps that they can take to move them forward, with the idea that most of those entrepreneurs will actually come back a couple of times to visit with us and get the next few steps.
Yeah.
Our goal is to kind of move them forward and help make that pace faster than they would be able to achieve it on their own, because there's so much that you don't know when you're starting a business that by coming to us, we can help clue you into some of the common pitfalls or maybe some of the opportunities that will help leapfrog your business ahead.
Yeah, and you know, as we kind of look back on the last 3 years, one of the things that I think the community has done very successfully, Megan, is eliminate confusion for an entrepreneur, regardless of where they are in the stage of their business. 3 years ago, an entrepreneur would basically spin in a circle and not know where to go for help. So these entrepreneur assists really provide direction and guidance. And as a connector, convener, we're connecting them and facilitating introductions between them and other providers that can help them where they are in their journey. So maybe just for a minute, let's talk about how we've eliminated some of that confusion with our knowledge network. I know we'll come back and talk about events and programming, but I think it makes sense because you've grown this vast vast relationship network of partners. So you want to talk a little bit about the Knowledge Network, how it's grown, and what they do?
Yeah, our Knowledge Network is comprised of well over 50 different organizations that participate on a monthly basis to talk about what resources they have that they can provide to entrepreneurs. We talk about what they have coming up, what workshops, what events, what collaborative ideas they might have. And we use that as a group to bounce ideas off, to share, to learn, and to basically stay informed so that each one of us who, when we're working with an entrepreneur, can give them the very best direction as to what their next step might be. So that Knowledge Network is comprised of organizations like Greater Spokane Incorporated, Startup Spokane, the SBDC, the SBA, but it's also comprised of businesses throughout the community, including financial institutions, including other co-working spaces.
Universities and colleges, right? I mean,
Exactly.
these are organizations that have any kind of touch point to the startup community. And what I really love about it is that it's turned into kind of a node-to-node network. So it's not a hub and spoke where everybody sends people directly to Startup Spokane. They certainly can. But now what we're seeing is we'll see Washington State University's Mike Ebinger with WSU's Center for Innovation. We'll see him referring someone directly to a different organization. So they've all become aware of each other's services, and they're able to do a lot of cross-referring between themselves or amongst themselves, but also into Startup Spokane as well.
Which is really exciting, because what we're doing by allowing that node-to-node connection is saving steps for entrepreneurs. We are cutting out middle steps that don't need to be taken necessarily if we can put them right in touch with the person they actually need next. So it's been a great information sharing opportunity, and it's really created a lot of collaboration. So instead of a hub and spoke like you were talking about, we're creating a net, a true network with so many crossover connections. And it creates different sparks, things that you don't necessarily think of as having direct connections. All of a sudden, when we start talking, they see how they can connect with something that seems rather foreign.
Yeah, and I don't want to pat ourselves on our backs too much, but you and I were recently in Seattle attending a summit where they were talking about creating their own ecosystem, and I found it fascinating that we're so far ahead of them in terms of collaboration. I mean, they are still mired down in silos and people not referring people to, entrepreneurs and otherwise, to the right resources. So again, kudos to Spokane.
True. Yeah, exactly. And that goes to a lot of those people who've come before and who've been working on this ecosystem for many, many years, including yourself, Steve. So I think that, there's so much interest in helping our community become a great startup center that people are willing to put old loyalties or potential pitfalls aside and work together across bridges.
So let's talk about some of the programming aspects, because we know that there is an opportunity for anyone in our community, whether you're an entrepreneur, a coach, a mentor, a subject matter expert, just a community member, to engage in our ecosystem. Everybody has the opportunity to give back. And I think the programming, whether it's Startup Spokane proper programming or third-party programming that occurs in our ecosystem, are ways for our community to connect. So let's talk a little bit about some of those outcomes.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to mention is the Knowledge Network has been really instrumental in reducing the amount of duplication of activity. So instead of having 11 different business plan workshops, we may have 2 or 3 that are specifically designed towards particular types of businesses or to time frames or schedules. So we are able to better drive entrepreneurship forward rather than just kind of keeping them eddying around in small silos on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really exciting. But back to your
so why don't
point.
you, we have some data from when we started in 2015 with events. Why don't you talk about, let's do a then and now, because we had another phenomenal year when it comes to programming.
Yeah, in 2015, Startup Spokane attended, participated, or hosted about 81 events throughout the course of the year with 3,700 attendees, so 3,700 touch points within the community. This year, we were up to 97, and that number's probably a little on the low side. There might be a few more, but we can also validate nearly 8,000 attendees. So
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit, we have a few minutes before break, talk a little bit about what what types of programming we have been providing.
Yeah, we at Startup Spokane, we have decided that it's really important for us to provide education for our entrepreneurs. And even if it's little tiny tidbits, it gives them a taste of what they need to know and where the questions they need to ask so they can take their own education further. So we've started last year a series of lunch and learn programs. We offer about 2 per month, and that gives us the opportunity to educate startup business owners or even small business owners on some really important things, whether that's taxes or legal formation questions or how to handle a public offering or an IPO. It could be really important for them to understand those key points before they move forward.
And so if people are interested, and I know we'll talk a little bit about 2018, but a lot of these events will continue into this year. Why don't we just, ahead of break, give a plug for how do people find these events and participate?
The best way to find out about our events is to check out the Startup Spokane calendar, and that's at www.startupspokane.com, and it's under our events and programs. So if you go to that page, you will find a calendar absolutely chock full, not only of our internal events, but also those of our partners, because we feel those are just as important as anything that we offer. Sometimes they have the next step. So you might come to a marketing lunch and learn and have basically 30 to 40 minutes of solid content about that. But if you want to take the next step, you're going to go to maybe a SCORE workshop that's going to be a half-a-day type event, or possibly a series of courses through Snap that's going to walk you through a variety of steps to make you a better social media marketer or entrepreneur.
Great. And I think let's rapid fire some of the other quick stats from 2017. We have office hour providers. We have like 15 different office providers. These are legal, marketing, it could be the library, what have you. We have a mentor network that is becoming more and more robust, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about Mind to Market. We do podcasts. We do 2 of these a month, right?
Whether you need them or not.
we have a blog. We've done quite a few blog postings, and we encourage our community to contribute to our blog.
We do, and we have a newsletter that we do every single week that keeps our readers informed of what's going on in the community and who they're working with.
Yep, and beyond that, we're being noticed by our local media, right?
Very
The Journal
exciting.
of Business and the Inlander and
The
others.
Review.
Yeah, everybody is picking up on the excitement in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the community for the ecosystem just continues to grow and grow. Well, let's take a quick break on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online, where hosts Steve Traben and Megan Hulsey, also your guest today in our 2017 year in review. We'll be right back, so stay with us.
They say it takes a community to raise a family. It also takes one to build a business. I came to Spokane 12 years ago as a Whitworth student, and I planned to leave after graduation. But the more I got to know this community, the more I wanted to become a part of it. My husband and I have built our business in Spokane, and now we're raising our family here too. We operate a consulting company that provides creative business development strategies. Our approach is holistic and dependent on intentional connections and relationships. And no one understands connections and relationships better than GSI. They direct momentum towards investments in our community, provide resources that help business leaders connect, and they're dedicated and passionate about making Spokane great. GSI gives me the confidence to build my business here because they believe every organization, even a small one like mine, adds big value to our community. With GSI's help, Spokane will be a place my son will want to build his career too. I'm Eva Marquette, owner of Freshview. We're creating something greater with Greater Spokane Incorporated.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
Welcome back to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online. I'm Steve, and along with me, Megan, and today we're reviewing our 2017 outcomes. And boy, what a year it's been. The first half of our show, we talked a lot about the outcomes from Startup Spokane. But, you know, one of the things that's overarching in all of this is an economic development strategy for our region. And,
Absolutely.
you know, new business starts and job creation, Megan, is really important. So let's talk a little bit about some of those outcomes.
Yeah, one of the important things that Startup Spokane does is we're not just a place for businesses from here locally. We are a place for businesses that are looking to expand or grow or test the waters here in Spokane as well. And so we've had a number of companies come through using our space and basically getting a toehold here in Spokane, which has been really important. And one of those is Rover.com. They started out with just a few employees, and they've grown significantly. And this year alone, through the entrepreneurs that we've worked with through our regular entrepreneur assistance programs and whatnot, as well as those expansions, we can account for over 450 jobs that we have added to the Spokane economy this year.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And these are direct jobs, right? So in our region, every direct job creates another 0.8 jobs. So you almost get another job for every direct one that you've created.
That's really exciting.
I mean, so you can, you can basically multiply 450, you're almost at 900 jobs just with Startup Spokane. And let's talk a little bit about some of the other players in the ecosystem. We work very closely with the colleges and universities in entrepreneurship. And
Absolutely.
Avista has created the Avista Business Entrepreneurship Network, and we've worked closely with just the community colleges. And I thought it would be interesting for people to know that since we started working with the community colleges to create entrepreneurship programs for what are primarily lifestyle businesses, I mean, we've had 750 students go through those programs. We've had 230 business starts and nearly 300 direct jobs.
That's amazing.
Isn't that? So all of the different touch points in the ecosystem, everybody has affected economic development. And, unfortunately today we don't have all those numbers aggregated for 2017, but we know that it's substantial.
Yeah, and those are just a great resource. It's so nice to know that our community colleges provide such a great foundation for people who want to get started, because that's another great place to get your start, is to go through one of those programs, learn how to develop and hone your business plan, and come up with a solid plan for moving that idea forward. It's a great place to start and very affordable.
Yeah, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the funding landscape, right? We have done a tremendous job as a community, and thanks to folks like Tom Simpson, who leads the Spokane Angel Alliance, who has created a handful of different investment funds. He's really been a catalyst for seed funding many of our local startups. And in 2017 alone, I mean, gosh, whether it's the SAA investments or whether it's investments from others, I mean, a tremendous amount of money has gone into some of those companies. I might just to kind of put it into the Spokane Angel Alliance bucket, over the last 5 years, members of our 100-member Angel Alliance group have invested $25 million into 35 companies. Those companies have gone on to raise another $155 million from other investors. They employ well over 1,000 jobs plus are created, et cetera, et cetera,
That's
et cetera.
fantastic. And for a lot of those companies, it's really a springboard. That Angel Alliance, whether they even get funding or not, is the place where they start and get traction and connections. Because in 2017, we had 14 companies in Spokane who raised $65 million in investment. And of course, not all of that came from local investors. So that's really exciting to see that Spokane is capturing the attention of investors across the nation.
Yeah, and compared to the year before, 7 companies raised $7 million, right? So to go from 7 companies to 14, from $7 million to $65 million, we're doing something right. And I think a lot of the credit goes to the sandbox, to this infrastructure, the foundation that we've laid collectively. And Startup Spokane is one of the cogs in the system, but there are a lot of players that are making this possible. And kind of to your point, I mean, this is not just a place where people can start their company here locally, but it's a place where we can recruit people to start their companies. It's a place where organizations can come and begin to expand their companies here, because we have all elements of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we got to explore a little bit with the Triangle Venture Expo this year, where we were able to highlight 7 of our emerging growth-oriented companies. Many of those are included in that list of people who raised funds this year, and that includes Gestalt Diagnostics, TMS, which is a medical device that is directed at treating depression and some other conditions. MotoTracks, Sportscope Video, which is another great startup that came from just right here and is organically growing in leaps and bounds. Safeguard, which was actually one of the winners of the NEC competition a couple of years ago. And so they have gone full circle, starting from just as students with an idea. Now they have secured funding and are about ready to offer their product into the market. So that's really exciting. Phytelligence is another regional startup that's done absolutely amazing things. But I'd like to spend a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about Spiceologist, because that's one that's really a great example of using all elements of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I was going to say, let's talk a little bit about the continuum, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I'll start. Pete Taylor, in 2012, the very first Startup Week in Spokane, and he comes in, and it had a different name, but it was spice-oriented. And he goes through Startup Spokane, or Startup Week in Spokane, brings his idea in, pitches it on Friday night, takes it through the weekend, and that's the genesis for him actually launching what today is, a very successful company known as Spiceologist. Talk more about how he's leveraged the ecosystem.
So he has worked through all aspects of the ecosystem, using the resources that are a part of our knowledge network, using Startup Spokane, and partnering with the Angel Alliance. They were one of his, and using the Kickstarter system.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was actually successful with crowdfunding, right?
Yeah, which is really exciting. He was one of the first ones here to really get a handle on how to do the crowdfunding well. And he has a toehold in stores like Williams-Sonoma, which is a giant retailer. And now he's actually making a pivot. In addition to having a customer-driven market, he's actually looking at going to a business-to-business model with his spice commercially.
He's selling spices in bulk to chefs, and it's a higher margin business than having small spice containers sitting in your local supermarket. And I'm sorry to butt in, but I just kind of trying to help out because I work with Pete a lot as well. He really has leveraged the ecosystem. I mean, we talk about founders' challenges, right, where you've got a person that has the technical expertise. I mean, Pete is a chef. He's not a CFO, but he's learned through mentorship and coaching that he had needs and gaps in his team, right? And since then has hired, in this case, he's contracted a part-time CFO. He's built an advisory board of individuals that are giving him incredible guidance. He's made pivots along the way, all of which has led him to his recent round of capital raising. I think he just closed $1.2 to $1.5 million. He's making his third facility move. He keeps outgrowing space, and it's just a tremendous story. And here, it's not even high tech, right? I mean, most people would say this is a lifestyle business, but it's really not. It's scalable. It's growing. And, his market is huge. It's a traded sector business. He's bringing dollars from all over the country, maybe even worldwide, into our economy.
And what's really exciting is that he has truly disrupted that industry in the way that he has introduced his new spice packaging.
Yeah. So one of the things I think would be interesting is I just really quickly want to talk about New Venture Lab, Gonzaga's New Venture Lab. They did a study for us. We were really curious about how does Spokane compare to cities like Seattle or San Francisco in the Bay Area, and we called it Project Runway. The question was posed to this group of student researchers: how far would $1 million go for a startup company? A startup company made up of 2 founders and 3 software engineers. And talk about the results if you know them off the top of your head, and if you don't, I will.
No, it was fantastic. They were able to show that $1 million for a company of that size would last over 2 years in Spokane. Nowhere else was it even close. We outperformed Seattle by about 35%, and it was nearly a 60% margin over the Silicon Valley. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk about an opportunity to recruit people to come to Spokane because their money goes further. The livability of our region is huge. We have 75,000 students graduating from our 7 area colleges and universities. So we've got this talent pool that's unbelievable. And I mean, again, I think we're hitting on all cylinders, and in part due to Startup Spokane, but in large part thanks to this community.
Yeah, well, and we also took into account some soft data things like how long are you sitting in traffic and, what does it cost to buy a home? Those kinds of things are really important when you're just getting started, whether it's a business or your family, because a lot of times those things coincide.
Yeah, so we've got just a couple of minutes left, Megan, in this show, and I think let's talk about what's our audacious goal for 2018. What's 2018 looking like? Why don't you tease it up?
Yeah, well, we have a lot on the calendar for 2018, but I think the most exciting thing we have coming up is called Mind to Market. And Mind to Market is an LLC that is designed specifically to provide funding, pre-seed stage funding, to startups who need to get a toehold to move their business forward.
Yeah, and we're going to do a complete program on Mind to Market coming up shortly, but let's just say this. If someone has a scalable idea, regardless of industry, if they are looking for taking that idea to launch, basically we want them to come to Startup Spokane. We'll vet it. We'll coach them intensively. We'll get them access to pre-seed capital so they can go create a minimum viable product and hopefully get customer traction and be on their way. And I think it's just a huge goal for us, in addition to all the wonderful things that we'll continue to do this year. Entrepreneur Assists, programming, events, hopefully another Triangle Venture Expo. Lots happening in the capital landscape and the ecosystem at large.
Yes, so it's been a great year.
So listen, we want to thank our entire community for all that you've done to help us be so successful for our startup community in 2017 and now going into 2018. We hope you'll join us for future broadened podcasts as we share important resources and spotlight entrepreneurs to help make Spokane that perfect place to launch and grow your next business. I'm Steve Traben, along with Megan Hulsey. We want to thank you for listening in on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Online.
Startup Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is a joint effort between GSI's Startup Spokane, Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Talks Online. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. We wish you a great and profitable day.